Was Zhuge Liang, the legendary strategist of the Three Kingdoms, actually an inefficient military leader? Or was he a brutal realist, fighting a war he knew he couldn't win? Let's dive into the fascinating and often misunderstood story of his northern expeditions. For many, Zhuge Liang is a symbol of genius, a man who could conjure victories out of thin air. We remember the stories of borrowing the east wind and the empty fort strategy. But when you look at the historical record of his 5 campaigns against the state of Wei, the picture gets a lot more complicated. From 228 to 234 AD, he launched major invasions, and every single time, he was forced to retreat. So, what went wrong? Was his genius just a myth? The answer isn't about Zhuge Liang's intelligence, it's about math. Brutal, unforgiving math. Let's start with the most basic resource: people. The state of Shu Han, which Zhuge Liang served, was the smallest of the 3 kingdoms. At its peak, Shu had a population of around 1 million people. In contrast, Wei, their northern enemy, had a population of over 4.4 million. That's more than a 4-to-1 advantage. This disparity affected everything. A larger population means more soldiers, more farmers to grow food, more laborers to build infrastructure, and a bigger tax base to fund the war. Historians estimate that Shu Han could field an army of about 100,000 soldiers in total. For each of his expeditions, Zhuge Liang could realistically only take a fraction of that, maybe 30,000 to 60,000 troops, because he had to leave the rest behind to defend his own borders against their other rival, Eastern Wu, and to maintain internal stability. Meanwhile, Wei could muster armies of hundreds of thousands. They didn't even need to commit their full strength to deal with Zhuge Liang. They could fight him with one hand tied behind their back, while still keeping massive armies in reserve to watch their eastern border with Wu and manage their vast territory. So, in every single battle, Zhuge Liang was severely outnumbered. It wasn't a fair fight. It was David versus a Goliath who had 3 brothers waiting in the wings. Now, let's talk about the second major problem: geography. Shu Han was located in what is now modern-day Sichuan province. It's a land of plenty, known as the Land of Abundance. But it's also a geographical fortress, surrounded by nearly impassable mountains. This was great for defense. It's a big reason why Shu Han could survive for so long. But for an attacker, it was a nightmare. To invade Wei, Zhuge Liang had to move his army and, crucially, all of its supplies, through treacherous mountain passes. The most famous of these were the Qinling Mountains. The paths were narrow, winding, and incredibly difficult to traverse. Transporting grain for tens of thousands of soldiers and horses was a logistical nightmare. They used a mix of ox carts, human porters, and the famous wooden oxen and gliding horses, likely a type of advanced wheelbarrow. But it was still painfully slow and inefficient. A huge portion of the food they brought was eaten by the porters and animals just getting it to the front line. This brings us to the core reason why most of his campaigns failed: logistics. In almost every expedition, the story is the same. Zhuge Liang would outmaneuver the Wei generals, win a few initial skirmishes, and lay siege to a key fortress. He'd prove he was the superior field commander. But then the clock would start ticking. His grain supplies would start to run low. The long, fragile supply line back to Shu was vulnerable to raids and bad weather. The Wei commanders, like the brilliant Sima Yi, understood this perfectly. They knew they didn't have to beat Zhuge Liang in a pitched battle. All they had to do was wait. They would adopt a defensive posture, hold their fortresses, and refuse to engage in a decisive fight. They would harass his supply lines and just wait for him to run out of food. It was a frustrating but incredibly effective strategy. Zhuge Liang, the master strategist, was consistently defeated not by swords and spears, but by empty grain sacks. Let's look at the first northern expedition in 228 AD. This was arguably his best shot. He used a brilliant feint, sending a decoy force to one pass while he marched his main army through another, catching the Wei state completely by surprise. Several Wei commanderies defected to him without a fight. Victory seemed within his grasp. But then came the critical battle of Jiting. He ordered his general, Ma Su, to hold a vital crossroads to protect his army's flank. Ma Su, overconfident and ignoring Zhuge Liang's specific instructions, set up his camp on a hilltop, away from water. The Wei general Zhang Hu simply surrounded the hill, cut off the water supply, and routed Ma Su's army. With his strategic position compromised and his army at risk of being enveloped, Zhuge Liang had no choice but to order a full retreat, executing the crying Ma Su afterward. One mistake by a subordinate undid his entire brilliant plan. Subsequent campaigns followed a similar pattern. In the second and third expeditions, he made some gains, capturing a couple of counties, but they were minor victories. The fundamental problem of supply and numbers remained. His most famous opponent, Sima Yi, was his perfect foil. Sima Yi wasn't as daring or brilliant a tactician as Zhuge Liang, but he was patient, cautious, and understood Wei's overwhelming advantages. During the fourth expedition, Zhuge Liang managed to score a major victory, killing the skilled Wei general Zhang Hu in an ambush. But even then, he was forced to retreat because his own logistics chief had failed to deliver supplies on time. It was always one step forward, two steps back. By his fifth and final campaign in 234 AD, Zhuge Liang tried to solve the supply problem once and for all. He marched his army of 100,000 to the Wuzhang Plains, a strategic location in Wei territory. Instead of relying on his long supply line, he had his soldiers start farming the local land, a strategy called Tuntian. It was a brilliant move to create a sustainable, long-term presence deep in enemy territory. Sima Yi, again leading the Wei forces, responded by doing what he did best. He built up his fortifications and waited. For over 100 days, the two massive armies faced each other. Zhuge Liang tried everything to lure Sima Yi into a battle. He sent messengers with taunts. In a famous move, he even sent Sima Yi a set of women's clothing, mocking him for his cowardice in refusing to fight. Sima Yi, ever the master of patience, simply accepted the gift, asked the messenger about Zhuge Liang's workload and health, and continued to hold his ground. He knew Zhuge Liang was aging and overworked. He was playing the long game, betting on his opponent's mortality, and Sima Yi's bet paid off. The immense strain of managing the entire state of Shu, both civil and military affairs, had taken its toll. Zhuge Liang, working himself to the bone for years, fell gravely ill in his camp. He died on the Wuzhang Plains at the age of 53. Upon his death, the Shu army, having lost its soul and its leader, had no choice but to conduct a silent, orderly retreat. Sima Yi, hearing the news, cautiously gave chase, only to be scared off by the Shu army turning around to feign an attack, leading to the famous saying, "A dead Zhuge scares away a living Sima." But it was a hollow victory. The final, most ambitious northern expedition was over. So, was Zhuge Liang a failure? Absolutely not. We have to reframe the question. His goal wasn't just to win battles, it was to ensure the survival of Shu Han. His motto was, "Restore the Han." He knew that Shu was the weakest of the three kingdoms. If they just sat back and did nothing, Wei would only grow stronger, and Shu's eventual demise would be inevitable. Attacking was the only way to keep Wei on the defensive, to disrupt their development, and to create an opportunity, however slim, for a miracle to happen. His campaigns were a desperate gamble against impossible odds. He wasn't inefficient, he was brutally realistic about his situation. He knew every invasion was a long shot, but it was the only shot he had. He maximized every single advantage he could find, from tactical genius to logistical innovations, to offset his overwhelming disadvantages in manpower and resources. The fact that he could challenge a superpower like Wei for years, keeping them in a constant state of anxiety, is not a testament to his failure. but to his extraordinary genius. He didn't lose because he was a bad strategist. He lost because you can't win a war when your opponent has 4 times the resources and can afford to simply wait you out. Zhuge Liang's story is not one of failure, but a tragedy of a brilliant mind fighting an unwinnable war, a testament to human will against the cold, hard logic of numbers. What do you think? Was Zhuge Liang's quest noble or futile? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into history, please make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.